Councillor Jones.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Question, yeah.
Mr Mayor, through you to the Director, and just regarding water quality, my understanding of this particular equine precinct is that there's a lot of the roof water and the stable water currently drains into this basin, and then it discharges into the canal after that. And I think last time this came to us in 2015, there was talk of maybe having the need for a detention or a retention basin as part of any future works. Is the proposed resolution wide enough in your view to allow for what may be required in regards to a small detention or retention basin in regards to stormwater?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, I believe we would have to do that as a matter of course.
Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question. I too recall the previous item which came before us, which resulted in this asset management plan being prepared. My recollection, though, was that it was somewhat different and that the request had been put to us to pass that land over for the Turf Club to undertake any necessary works on that site. This is somewhat different because it talks about securing funding in cash and in kind, and I'm just a little confused about where that responsibility would sit, whether it would rest with council, what the likely costs might be, and if I'm reading that correctly, or would the costs all be borne by the Turf Club or the Gold Coast Show Society?
Councillor Baldwin, in your motion there, is the intent that the Gold Coast Turf Club, in securing the funding cash in kind, they're taking on the burden of the cash and the kind?
That's correct, Mr Mayor. They have written to the council previously and offered to fill it. It is their responsibility. They have undertaken.
No cost to council. Maybe we add at no cost to council. Right, Councillor Baldwin, what do you think of the idea that we just clarified? Just added at no cost to council. Okay. All right, Councillor Gates.
Money on it. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Caldwell.
Well, it's along the same lines, Mr Mayor. I actually support exactly what Councillor Baldwin's trying to achieve, but can you just remind me, perhaps through you to the Director, what's the tenure of this actual site?
Council temporary retention tank, I would have thought. Asset, right?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it is largely council land. There's, I think, some road reserve and an easement across it, but it's largely council tenure.
So would we not be better off to include in this resolution something about the CEO being authorised to enter into normal lease terms with the Gold Coast Turf Club?
Yeah, just, I guess, thinking about the resolution as it's worded, there are all of those consequential issues to be worked through. So we could do it two ways. We could have something as is proposed by Councillor Caldwell. If that wasn't the case, we didn't have any words additional to what's there, those consequential matters would have to be worked through. And if we have to come back to council to get further resolutions, that's exactly what we do. We understand the import of it, but all the issues of tenure, any regulatory responsibilities, etc., would have to be worked through consistent with current policies and legal frameworks.
I think Councillor Caldwell, if we leave it the way it is, let the Gold Coast Turf Club has a crack of trying to secure the cash in kind to do the work. Before they commence the work, they need to come and finalise this, because it might be that by the time they look into the project itself, maybe it's too big for them. And for us to talk in terms of the next bit, I'd let it come back to council.
That's fine. The other thing, I mean, it talks about really just trying to source the money for it to be filled. Again, I don't know if we should be crystal clear that council's decision today is that this site should now be filled, and that its highest and best use for the community is as an overflow car park, horse training, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's no actual direction that says that that's what we're going to do from what I can read, but I'll be guided by the CEO.
I think the the import of the resolution is that that's what would happen, provided there is money other than the council money forthcoming. If that is not the case, then we're back to the status quo.